Hello. In this video, what I want to show you is a little bit of in-depth information on sharpening inside of Lightroom. As you can see, I've got an image here. It's some wildflowers taken just a couple weeks ago, and I've already went to my Develop tab here, and if I open up the Basic panel, you can see I've done a few adjustments to the image already and kind of just worked my way down, and now I'm down to the Detail tab here inside of Lightroom. If you click on this, you'll see that it expands out, and you'll see you've got your sharpening and your noise reduction settings. I'm not going to go over the noise reduction in this one. We're just going to specifically talk about sharpening your images inside of Lightroom. And a couple key things to keep in mind when sharpening images is that every photo that you take can benefit from some sharpening. Even if you get it tack sharp as it could possibly be straight out of your camera, that photo could still benefit from at least a little additional sharpening when you're post-processing your image. Another key thing to keep in mind, if you take an image and it's not in focus, you're pretty much at a loss there. There's no way you can sharpen an out-of-focus image and bring back that image to a usable state. And then the other key thing, actually two more key things. First one is that your images, they'll benefit from not sharpening the entire image. So if we look at this one right here, if we apply sharpening to this whole image, you'll see I've got a lot of blurred background. It's kind of pointless to sharpen an area of the image that I've intentionally made out of focus. All you're going to do at that point is just increase the artifacts when you bump up the sharpening in those areas. In this image particularly, you can see that I've got the flower in focus here, and this is what I primarily want to keep sharp. In your images, you may have, front to back in focus. You may want to sharpen more of the whole image or specific parts. It varies by image, but just keep in mind that you're going to benefit more from not sharpening the entire image. And the last key thing to think about in sharpening, if you print your images out, you're going to want to sharpen those images. The printing process, it tends to, I don't know if dull down your images, but kind of reduce the sharpness of your images when you print them. So you always want to add a little bit of extra sharpness when you're printing those images out. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump in here now. We've got the Detail panel open, and we're going to focus on the sharpening section here. What you can do, you can either, actually you'll notice right here that sharpening, you've already got these numbers 25, 1.0, 25, and 0. Lightroom applies some default sharpening when you import your images, and so you've got a bare minimum of sharpening already happening to those, but you can increase this more or less depending on the image that you have. And you can work your way from the top down or from the bottom up. In this example, I'm going to start from the bottom up and show you what each of these 4 sliders will actually do. And so to start with, we're going to go to the masking section here. The masking, what it's going to do, it goes back to the point of not sharpening the entire image. This will mask out, just like in Photoshop, using masking in there, you can block out certain parts of the image. This masking slider will do the same thing, and if you slide it initially, you're not going to notice anything happening. The key here is the Alt or Option key on your keyboard. If you hold that key down and you'll start sliding this, you're going to see your image turns to black and white, and you'll notice a lot of those edges showing up. Slide this further to the right, and you'll see that all of the black areas are not going to apply any sharpening to them. And so that out of focus area that I didn't want sharp, this masking section is going to eliminate sharpening in those areas. So if I increase it further, you're going to notice that I've got primarily those petals on the flower that are going to be sharpened. So once we've got that set, we can move up to our Detail slider. And the Detail slider, the easiest way to think about it is it sharpens the edges of the image. And another thing to think about on this is if you have a highly textured image, say you have well, this you could possibly even think of as highly textured, rock, anything like that. The detail slider is going to sharpen those edges a lot more, and if you pump this all the way up, it can increase and make it more towards like kind of a, I don't know if you want to say grungy look to it or not. And so for the detail slider, I'm going to just move this up here a little bit. You're not going to notice a huge difference right now because I haven't increased my amount quite yet, but I do want to enhance some of the edges, specifically on this flower right here. Let's put it right about there. All right. Next, we move on to our radius slider. And the radius slider, what that does is increases the size of your sharpened details. And another key thing you can do here is, again, that Alt or Option key. If you hold that down, you'll kind of notice a grayed out image. If you slide this further to the right, it kind of enhances that flower. And the further to the left, it kind of decreases it. And so the radius, again, increases the size of those sharpened details. Key thing you want to keep in mind here, if you have images that have smaller details in them, say you're taking a picture of a grassy field, or again something with a high texture, you're going to benefit from a lower radius number than you would say you're taking a picture of something with a smoother surface. Say you have like a building with smooth windows, even something like that that has large details is going to benefit from a higher radius number. And so I'm going to say this, and I've got a little bit more texture, so I'm going to drop this down, maybe even just leave it on the default right there, maybe a 1.1, because I do have a lot of the smaller details in here. And so finally, we're going to get to the amount slider. You can see it's defaulted at 25. I am going to bump this up, and let's go maybe right about 75 right there. And the key thing you want to think on this, you don't want to bump this all the way up past 100. The more you sharpen an image, the more chance you are going to have of increasing artifacts in areas of the image. And you can kind of see over in a little preview window, you can see the little speckles kind of showing up here. That is going to be sharpening artifacts. And so you drop this down a little bit, and you'll notice, you may not be able to notice on your screen, but you can see a few of those details, or the speckled artifacts that are showing up, are kind of diminishing the more I drop that amount slider down. And that pretty much takes care of the 4 sliders in the sharpening section. Once you start, say if you start at the bottom, work your way up, or start at the top, work your way down, you can always go back in and refine these to get just the right amount of sharpening that you want in your image. And lastly, a little key tool that you want to make note of, in your detail section in the top left hand corner, you'll see a little selection. You can click on this, and if you notice, you can hover over parts of your image and they will show up over in left hand side, or the right hand side, excuse me. If you click, that will set that specific location so you can see the effects of your sharpening as you increase or decrease the sliders here. So you increase that, you're going to notice those artifacts showing up there. If you decrease it, you'll notice they go away. And so you want to find kind of a happy medium in here. Let's actually just leave this at 65. I may play with my details again and drop this down a little bit. And once you're happy with your image, you can move on to your noise reduction and then export and either share your images out or print them out for your own viewing pleasure. So I hope this has given you a little bit better of an idea as far as the sharpening section under the details in Lightroom, and to help you increase the sharpness of your photos and give you a better idea as far as your post-processing goes to get some sharp images.